is our history. Buildings and people and memories and dreams. Who better to tell us than those who were there? There's so much to learn from the stories they'll share. Living history. Living history.
Hello, and welcome to Living History with Ted Goldsboro, and our guest today, Mrs. Maryam Phillips. Maryam and I are going to talk about her life in Lower Merion and her family and the positions that she's held, and we're very glad to have her with us today. Thanks for coming, Maryam.
Thank you for inviting me.
Maryam was kind enough to do a lot of the work that I usually have to do, which is to gather photos about the person, but you were good enough to do this, and I appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome.
Let's start about your family, and then we'll get into your activities. Can you tell me about your family?
Well, I'm the oldest of 6 children. We are stair steps, we're all a year apart, and our parents met in Philadelphia. So there was an introduction provided by my godmother, who was a singer around the different clubs in the 50s, and she happened to do a stint up in Buffalo, New York, where my mom actually got to hear her sing, and they got to be friendly. And when my mom decided snow was too much in Buffalo, she moved down here to Philadelphia, and Aunt Odessa was the only person she knew, so she looked her up, and my Aunt Odessa actually introduced my mom to my dad. So he was also playing in the clubs at that time.
Was your mother a musician?
Nope.
Nope. She just enjoyed music.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let me see, so maybe they were married in Buffalo or Philadelphia? Or?
Married in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And I was actually born in Philadelphia, and shortly after I was born, they moved out to Mount Pleasant area.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I guess I was less than 2 when they moved to Ardmore. So I consider myself kind of born and bred Ardmore.
Yes, yes. The same house that I'm familiar with on
Actually, we started out right across the street, and one of the reasons why I'm such a supporter of the fire company is because that house had an electrical fire when we were 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and just born, and my dad was working nights. So it was an overnight fire, and the neighbors, helped get all us kids out of the house, and another neighbor put us up for a few weeks, and so that was a little scary, but we ended up, it was just so happened, the house right across the street was empty, and the family agreed to sell it to my mom and dad for $11,000.
Good, good.
So we moved across the
okay.
street, and that's where the family has been ever since.
I see. And what street was that?
That's the 300 block of West Spring Avenue.
West Spring Avenue.
Right
okay.
near the skating rink.
Yeah, near the Haverford College and the Humane Society skating rink.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Many of us, I grew up in Narberth, and I knew about the skating rink, but very seldom ever went there. But as an adult, that's a section of Lower Merion that many of us don't go into very often because it's not on the road to, Haverford or somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, you need to go there intentionally.
Yes.
You don't just happen by it.
Now, in your family, in your 5 siblings, how many of them live around here versus somewhere else?
Well, of the 6 of us, 3 of us are still here in Pennsylvania. I have another sister in Ardmore, a sister in Elkins Park, and then the other 3 are all down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
And why Baton Rouge?
Well, my brother was in the Air Force, and he happened to be on leave at a little beach on Ship Island. And my sister went down and actually said, I'll come visit you. And so she visited him, and on the ferry boat out to Ship Island, they saw another ferry boat going the other way.
Jeez.
And she actually saw her who is now her husband,
Wow.
on the other ferry boat. They kind of caught each other's eye,
Jeez.
and he hopped the next ferry back.
Wow, what a story.
And yeah, convinced her to
Jeez.
marry him, and so she
Wow.
relocated almost within 3 or 4 months.
Jeez.
And then when my brother got out of the service, he said, "Well, you're down here. I'll stay down here too." And,
Oh, baby.
and now my other brother is there as well. So
So it was love at first sight from those two ferry boats.
it really was.
Wow.
It really was. Yeah.
Did they have children?
They have one son. His name is Walker, and he just
Oh.
celebrated his 18th birthday.
And what was your maiden name?
Walker. He has a great Southern name. His name is Walker William Fleming.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Now, what did your dad do to make money to raise these 6 kids?
Yeah. Well, I think it was pretty obvious that playing the guitar wasn't going to pay the bills. So he pretty much set aside music and did whatever he could. He was a really good carpenter, and he did glazing, glass work, and he was very handy with all kinds of tools. So people came to him with all kinds of jobs, and he basically did whatever he could to kind of keep the bills rolling in until he ran across Mr. Allen Simon, who was a locksmith with no one to leave his business to.
Oh.
So he journeymaned and apprenticed with Mr. Simon, and that was a pretty bold step for him to take at that time, to apprentice an African American into a business like that. So.
And Mr. Simon's business was in Ardmore?
It was right on Cricket Avenue.
Oh, I see.
And so we just, kind of fell into, being the son of a locksmith.
I guess I was trying to think of my own childhood. I don't recall so much going to a hardware store to have keys made. But when I was a kid, there was a locksmith on Dudley Avenue in Narberth by the railroad tracks, and in his basement you went down a couple stairs and there were a gazillion keys all over
all
the
the
place.
blanks. Yeah.
And so we always went to Mr. Smedley if you needed, but it seems nowadays you go to Home Depot or Lowe's and they put a machine in and it cuts it, but I'm used to the guy with the grinding wheel. And
Yeah, and we had those, and my dad did some of his work at home, but almost all of it was in his rolling shop. So
yeah, tell about that.
what
was that rolling shop?
Yeah, it was an old International Harvester step van, and he had it all outfitted and had everything, to where he could reach everything very quickly, and he would just take that around to do lock jobs. And so apart from people just kind of knocking on the door with emergencies or calling, he could pretty much just fall out of the house and fall into his truck, and he had everything on there that he needed to do the job. So
I think we have an article about your dad's shop. It was from, I guess, the Merion Times in 1972, and it's a nice picture of him and his shop. And it tells how certain organizations, like maybe the Lower Merion Police or Township Police or Vanguard School or the Presbyterian Church or Lyons Brothers, would ask him to do jobs for them, which was good.
Yeah, he was probably the first black master locksmith in Pennsylvania at that time. So it was really important that he set be a good role model for kids in the neighborhood, and he certainly had the confidence of Lower Merion Township. He dealt with the police locks for many years, but they also knew they could call him at any hour, and he would show up. He would be there.
So that's a second generation of commitment and dedication to helping Lower Merion Township, you and him.
Yes.
We have a picture of your mother and father.
Right.
And then there's a nice article again from the Merion Times in 1988, I think it says, about your mother. And what was this article about? What was the context of that?
Well, I think after we all grew up and had our own futures and, we were off doing our own thing, then my mom decided she really didn't need to be a stay-at-home mom anymore. And she just so happened to see an ad for a receptionist at the birth center in Bryn Mawr. And that was before you did, fancy resumes or anything. She just wrote a letter. And she said, "My name is Jean Walker. I've raised 6 kids successfully. You know, I'm kind of built for this job." And they interviewed her and agreed, and so she spent many years at the birth center, and a lot of people still remember her there as the greeter and the person that welcomed them into that situation there. So
how did she get to work?
she drove.
Okay.
She drove, and that's something that she didn't even do until she didn't even get her license until she really needed to use one.
I see.
It was
That was
second
a
career.
challenge if you've never done it before.
Yes, yes.
So when your kids were growing up, she didn't have a license. Wow.
Nope. Yep. We had a big old station wagon, and my dad would just pile us all up in the station wagon, take us to the library or to the drive-in movie theater. And had to find things where you could get a lot of bang for your buck.
Yes. The movie, those drive-ins, because you get 6 people in for a couple of bucks. We have this lovely photo of your father in about a minute or two. We're going to have to take a break, but I'm very fond of this photo. Could you tell me how that happened to be taken? You know, who took it, under what circumstances?
I have a feeling that's right when he was coming back from Baton Rouge. He got back into writing music, and he had actually started doing lyrics and songs and composing again. And judging by that pen, it looks like, you know, the quill pen that he used to write out some of his music. And he did a song for Baton Rouge, you know, because it's home to my 3 siblings, and he's visited a lot, and it was kind of like a home away from home for him.
And he had stopped being a locksmith at this point?
Yes, yes, he had retired. He ended at the end of his career working for Lower Merion School District as a locksmith. But
I see.
yeah, but once he retired, he could kind of go back to just music and magic, magician.
Could he earn Social Security? Had he paid into? Oh, good,
Yes,
good.
yes.
So he had some income coming in.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
There's a picture, and I think this will be our last picture before we take a break here, but there's a picture of him, and I wonder if you could describe that to me.
Sure, that's from Jet Magazine, and they would put pictures of interesting people around the country in their magazine, which came out once a week, and he was listed as the Shoeless Sheik, Bobby the Sheik Walker. There's a story where he would play. He had a combo band, and he would actually be playing, leave the bar or setting where they were while he was playing, and stroll around the block playing. People would follow him back in, and they say he never missed a beat. He was right in time with the drummer when he arrived back to the club. So he was pretty well known then.
Miriam, we have to take a short break here, and we'll be back after this break. This is Ted Goldsboro talking with Marion and Phillips about her life and her family in Ardmore.